Greetings and welcome. And to another video. This time I'll be talking about the almighty power of God. This Bible study will be split up into 4 sections. My first point is that it is supreme. God's power is supreme. It's shown. Uh, Number 3 will be it is scoffed at. Yes, atheists do scoff at his power. And part 4 will be it saves souls. So yeah, it's pretty important. So all S's. So I got my 4 main points. I don't know how many videos this will take, but it's a very important topic, very important study about the almighty power of God. So my first point is that God's power is supreme. And we all understand that God can do anything. He's not limited by anything. He's all powerful, all of that. But we don't always think about that. We understand he can do anything, but sometimes we need specific examples, just to remind us just how powerful is he. Yeah, it's beyond comprehension, really. We just have like our finite brain and our finite lifespan, and we're so limited. We have limitations in our power. And God doesn't have limitations. He doesn't have limitations on his age. He's immortal, eternal. He doesn't have limitations in his power and ability. And he doesn't have limitations on his intelligence. He knows everything. We have limitations on all three of those things. On our physical, intellectual, and our lifespan. So, yeah, this is God. This is the creator of the universe. Obviously, he has to be all powerful and all-knowing. So yeah, now one thing about God's power, though, is that it magnifies Him, and it demands worship. And that is one of the main points. It's going to be one of the main points of the study, is that like we, God created the universe. He didn't have to. He didn't have to create anything. He's already all powerful. But he decided to create the universe. He decided to create people, and he wanted some kind of relationship with his creation. It's obvious, otherwise he wouldn't have written the Bible. He does want a relationship with people, and yeah, because you have to think about that. Like, we just kind of take it for granted. Like, yeah, we're born into sin. We trusted Jesus Christ as our Savior. We're going to heaven when we die, all of that, like, it's, and then people that don't believe, they go to hell, like all this stuff, it's in the Bible. But if we take a step back and wonder, like, why did God create everything? Why? There's a lot of why questions about the Bible. Even if you read the Bible and you can keep studying, there's still going to be questions of why. Like, there's just so many things we just don't know about God. So I'm going to answer as much as I can to the best of my ability. So yeah, you kind of have to tell people that God is all powerful, because they always limit God. People always limit God, and that's going to be my third point. That's going to be one of my main things, that people always limit God. They just don't understand His power. They always doubt, like, well, that couldn't have really happened. Like, God couldn't have created the earth in 6 days. Like, oh, I can't believe humanity's only been around for 6,000 years. Like the evolutionists, the Big Bang Theory people, the people that call themselves scientists, like they always try to find some explanation. They always try to find some reason, and they just try to limit God. And they'll like I've seen people read the Bible. Like, it's amazing how they interpret, like misinterpret a clear verse in the Bible. It's like they're doing it on purpose. It's like they're doing it on purpose, really. It's like, how do you mess this up? So yeah, they doubt His power, but it's in the Bible. Everything's written in the Bible. And we have creation around us. Everything around us speaks of God's glory and power, that it was all created, and didn't just randomly happen. It was designed. It was designed according to God's ideas, and everything works. All the cells work. Everything works and functions. It doesn't happen randomly and by chance. You're not going to get life. Like, that just doesn't make sense. So there was an intelligent designer, obviously. Anyway, so my first point is that It is supreme. So the first verse I wanted to read was 1 Chronicles chapter 29. 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 11. 1 Chronicles 29, chapter 29, verse 11 through 13. Thine, O Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the victory and the majesty. For all that is in the heaven and in the earth is thine. Thine is the kingdom, O Lord, and thou art exalted as head above all. Both riches and honor come of thee, and thou reignest over all. And in thine hand is power and might. And in thine hand it is to make great and to give strength unto all. Now therefore, O our God, we thank thee and praise thy glorious name. So here in verse 11 it says, Thine, O Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory, the victory and the majesty. That is in the heaven, and in the earth is thine. So, don't know what else to add to that. It just says everything is his. Everything belongs to the Lord. You can't pay off the Lord. That's it. Like, you can't pay him off. Like, you're going to owe a debt to God, and it's not a debt that you could pay off. He owns everything anyway. And then in the earth is thine. So everything belongs to him anyway. The heaven's his, the earth's his. Thine is the kingdom, O Lord, and thou art exalted as head above all. So yeah, the kingdom. There will be a kingdom of heaven, and God will reign over it. Right now, people just do whatever they want. We have all sorts of kingdoms all over the earth. Everyone rules. Everyone rules how they want. You got some crazy people in power. You got corrupt dictators. You got all sorts of different types of government, but it's all just man trying to control, other people, and it's going to come to an end one day. One day, all those kingdoms will end. Oh, they'll fall. They're as nothing. They're actually at less than nothing. That's actually what the Bible says. As drops in a bucket, basically. To God, they don't mean anything, and all those kingdoms will end. Even the greatest, America. It doesn't matter. Like, all the kingdoms, they will not stand before God. They will not last forever. All kingdoms will fall. And when God's kingdom is established, you're going to have a tribulation. Anyway, the book of Revelation talks about all of this. And it's less than nothing. It all belongs to God anyway. So one day, that's what we're waiting for. Waiting for God's kingdom. Waiting for God's kingdom. Thou art exalted as head above all. Yeah, the God kingdom on earth, the millennial kingdom. So, some people believe that we're spreading God's kingdom. No, you are not spreading God's kingdom. This is not God's kingdom, right? What's going on right now, that's awful. That is not God's kingdom. I think, what was it, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they believe that they're spreading the kingdom, and right now we're like in the millennium or something. No, that's just dumb. Like, no. This is a wicked world. To say that this is God's kingdom is just an insult to God. No. God's kingdom will be much greater than whatever is going on right now. It will not be the mess that it is right now. During God's kingdom, Jesus Christ will literally be ruling over the earth, and all sin will be dealt with swiftly. You won't get away with whatever's going on right now. Verse 12, both riches and honor come of thee, and thou reignest over all, and in thine hand is power and might, and in thine hand it is to make great and to give strength unto all. Absolute power. So absolute wealth, he owns everything. Just everything belongs to him. Absolute power and might, he can do whatever he wants. And it says, and to make great and give strength unto all. So he gives power to whoever he wishes to. So everything's just a prayer away, and we forget that. You can just pray, everything. You can pray. God doesn't necessarily have to answer your prayers, but he can. And he can give you whatever you ask. It doesn't matter. Anything you ask, he can give it to you. There's no restrictions, no limitations, anything. Now, I'm not going to say name it and claim it. I don't believe in that, that mumbo jumbo. And to say your prayer wasn't answered because you lack faith. No, that's Pentecostal nonsense, charismatic nonsense. Just because you pray something doesn't mean it's going to happen. It doesn't mean, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean you lack faith. Just means it's not God's will. That's it. Simple as that. So yeah, but so yeah, absolutely. Just yeah, he can give strength unto anybody. It doesn't matter. So just remember, everything's just a prayer away. Verse 13. Now therefore, God, we thank thee and praise thy glorious name. So obviously, you should honor God. I mean, especially if you're a Christian, it's like, wow, God gave you life. He gave you all this stuff. All the blessings He pours upon your life. There's just so much to thank God for, and we just forget. We forget that there's so much to be thankful for this life and everything He's given us. Um, Especially if you're born into a good circumstances and in a more hospitable country, in more developed country, you have plenty to be thankful for. Really, you really do, because not everybody gets these blessings. Financial blessings and blessings of health and wealth. And even those that don't, they still find something to be thankful for. It doesn't matter what your circumstances are. You can always be thankful for something. And that's important, is to have gratitude. And I feel like that's sort of been lost in these last few generations. Our standards of living have increased a lot, and we just don't really understand like what it was like to like live for most people throughout the centuries, and they were still thankful. And yeah, there's always something to be thankful for. So yeah, just definitely practice gratitude. God hates the proud and loves the humble. So definitely take a humble approach to God. Be thankful, and God blesses those people. Um, God hates the proud. So just don't forget to always thank God for all He's done for you. Um, yeah. So yeah, you want to be thankful because like you're limited. Our power is still limited. We can't. There's a lot of stuff we can't do. Like we're just so limited in our scope. But God is not limited. He can do anything. He's your dad. It's like when you're a kid, then your parents, like your dad, your mom, like they might seem really smart at the time. When you're a little kid. When you get older, you realize that's probably not the case. But as a kid, you think your parents are amazing. Um, so but this is God, except God's never gonna let you down because He is God, and He's basically like your dad, and He's like basically all powerful. It's like how you visualize Him, but God is all powerful. He can do anything. So when you're in a struggle, just get God's help. That's it. He'll step in. He'll handle it. He'll handle any problem, any issue. He'll step in. He'll handle it. So there's no reason to not pray, to not get in contact with God, because everything is just a prayer away. As one time in Bible school, someone preached. One of my classmates preached, and I remember him saying that everything is just a prayer away. And that's so true. Everything is literally just a prayer away. We just need to remember that. We need to remember that everything is literally just a prayer away. So anyway, that was my first point, is that He literally controls everything. Um, and then, so I have another point. Psalm 66. Psalm 66. Oh yeah, right here. Psalm 66, verse 7. He ruleth by His power forever. His eyes behold the nations. Let not the rebellious exalt themselves. So His power, like I think I already mentioned this, but His power, He rules forever. There's no limit to His power, and it lasts. Like even the greatest kingdoms and dynasties of the world lasted maybe a couple hundred years. Like seriously, like they think America's all powerful. Yeah, but how long has America existed? 240 years, a little more now, maybe closer to 250. Well, actually, I don't think they're even at 250. Yeah, it's not even 250 years yet. And that's pretty good on a for the historical time scale. But even like the strongest Chinese dynasties might have lasted just a couple hundred years, because Keeping something going is very difficult. Someone's going to mess it up. All it takes is one evil dictator, one whatever, one mishap, one, what do they call it? Black swan event, something that just unprecedented and not expected, and everything just falls apart. And I'm sure there have been countries in the past that thought that they were the exception to the rule and that they were never going to fall. And you're going to fall. It's going to fall eventually. So don't, I'm not going to say any country is exempt from falling apart. Humans are very weak, very fragile, and social unrest rises up very easily. As I'm sure you've seen through the news and other places. So kingdoms fall apart all the time. Now, God's kingdom, or whatever God has established, whatever God tries to do, it never falls apart. It happens exactly the way He wants it to happen. So His power, nobody can match His power. It just lasts forever. And He ruleth over the nations. So He decides who's in power. By the way, yeah, that's a verse in Romans. I forget the exact verse, but it basically says that God puts those people in power. So those evil dictators, God allows them to be in power. God has no problem taking one of those guys out. And He puts them in power, and it says He appoints the basest of men. So those people that get into positions of power quite often are evil, because it literally says they're the basest of men, like the worst people, the worst, most ridiculous, evil men. Those are the ones that get appointed to power. Which is so true, because if you look at it historically, that makes a lot of sense. If you just look at who has been in power so far, because a normal person, with just psychologically normal, would probably not want to be the president. There's probably something wrong with you if you want to be president. That's why there generally aren't a lot of good presidents, because generally there's something wrong with you if you want that job. You probably have some evil motive or something. Very few people in those positions are altruistic or kind. They're usually greedy and selfish and very wicked. Obviously we have a very good exception. We have a very good image of that right now with the war that's going on. We obviously can see that happen firsthand. So yeah. So anyway, His power lasts forever. God's power lasts forever, and He ruleth by His power forever. His eyes behold the nations. So He sees all the countries, all the nations. He puts those people in power. Let not the rebellious exalt themselves. And that's like what happens. Men think they're so amazing. They're going to stand before God and they're going to talk about all their wealth and all their accomplishments. And God's just going to yawn. God doesn't care about all those accomplishments, everything. You can impress people. You can impress men. You can impress women. You can be cool. You can be the coolest dude ever. Be a wealthy millionaire. Have everything you want. And you're still not going to impress God. You're not going to impress God. You can impress people, but that's it. So like don't exalt yourselves, because there's no reason for it. Let not the rebellious exalt themselves. So it says the rebellious. It's the rebellious people, the people that don't want to have anything to do with God. Those are the ones that are going to exalt themselves. They're going to think they're self-made men and they're amazing, and they don't know that it was God that allowed them to have all of that. Yes, obviously they worked hard, but they could have just as easily been born in a third world country, somewhere in Africa or somewhere else in the world, and had absolutely no chance of success in life whatsoever. That could have just as easily been them, but instead they were blessed, and instead of thanking their Creator, they exalt themselves. So that just know that that's God hates the proud. So His power is forever. Like it literally says forever. It's not like those little dynasties that just fall apart. No, God's power is forever. It will never fall. Let's see. Yeah, and he just never gets tired. Like He never wears out. It's not like us, like I said, we have so many physical limitations put on us. I mean, I mean, man can do some very impressive things and amazing things. But I say that as a human, as a man. Like, obviously, I'm impressed by things other people do, because I'm thinking, I'm thinking of things on my level. From God's perspective, it probably doesn't look very amazing at all compared to what He's done. Like, I'm impressed by it, obviously, but we're just not going to impress God. And we also, like, we get tired. Like, we have limitations. Like, we can do a lot of amazing things, but we get tired and we have limitations. We get exhausted. God doesn't. God doesn't have to. He can just keep working forever. He'll never get tired. It says He rested on the seventh day because He just felt like just sitting back and looking at what He's accomplished. It's not like He got tired. If He wanted to, He could have created something on the seventh day too. Like, there's no reason for Him not to. He just decided, like, He worked for 6 days and He rested 7 days. That just means He stopped. That's it. He just stopped working. That's it. He decided, like, hey, I don't have to work. I can keep working, but you know what? I think this is enough. This is all I wanted to create. Like, I'm done. I finished the job. So He created the world, in 6 days. Now, so yeah, let me read another verse. Psalm 106. Psalm 106, verse 8. Psalm 106, verse 8. Psalms 106, verse 8. Nevertheless, He saved them for His name's sake, that He might make His mighty power to be known. Nevertheless, He saved them for His name's sake, that He might make His mighty power to be known. So yeah, you obviously want to get the context here. He's talking about Egypt here. Our fathers understood not thy mercies in Egypt. They remembered not the multitude of thy mercies. And over that, so nevertheless, He saved them for His name's sake, that He might make His mighty power to be known. So, God's actions, now you might consider this selfish, but God's going to do things in His own self-interest. And, well, although actually, I mean, you could probably argue that, but God's going to do things that magnify His name. So even something like, allowing Jesus to die on the cross, which, if you think about it, that doesn't actually really sound like in His own self-interest, but He was willing to do that because He wanted to keep that relationship with His creation. It said He's not willing that any should perish. So that's why He offered a way. God had to offer a solution to the sin problem. He wanted to fix the sin problem. He didn't want to just ban humanity from the heavens, from heaven. So I don't know. Like, yeah, sometimes He does things that it's like, yeah, we don't really get it. But it does say that He will do things that magnify His name. So sometimes He does good because it magnifies His name. Kind of like when Moses was arguing with God, and he was saying, like, well, don't destroy the people. God's like, yeah, I'm going to destroy the people. Moses is like, no, don't destroy the people, because if you kill them off, if you kill off the Jews right now, then your name, it'll be like an insult to your name, because then the Egyptians will say, oh yeah, he just brought them out into the desert just to kill them off. Like, what was the point of all of that? What was the point of serving God and all of that? So it's like, if He kills off everybody, who's going to praise His name? And it's like Moses had to argue with God to say, like, hey, this is going to be an insult to your name. You shouldn't do that. God's like, yeah. So God's going to act, to make decisions that glorify His name. That's it. He's going to make decisions based off that. So His name will be exalted. So here it says, nevertheless, He saved them for His name's sake, that He might make His power to be known. So that's why He saved the people. That's why He's offering you a chance to get saved, through Jesus Christ. So that's love. That's love. He loves you. That's why He gave you a chance to get saved. Otherwise, He wouldn't have done it. But also, it glorifies His name. It glorifies His name that He does have people worshiping Him. So that's why his name that demands worship. God's name always demands worship because he's the creator of the universe. So there is no name like more worthy of praise than God, the creator of the universe. So that's it. So like so yeah, he demands worship. Um, so yeah, you can argue with that, or you can just join God. That's it. Because it says, God is a jealous God. The Bible actually literally says that God is a jealous God. So he is jealous, and his power must magnify him. So his power and his creations uh, are created to magnify his name, to show. Because if he's the greatest God, if he's the God of the universe, and he doesn't create anything, then well, it doesn't really show it. By creating things, it shows like how amazing he is. So the fact that he created the whole universe. Um, and you can go on for a long time talking about how amazing God's creation is and everything that he's made through biology, chemistry, physics, just all the animals, everything, just how everything is designed perfectly. All of that is just showing God's handiwork, like how amazing everything is that God made. But yeah, so that's basically what I was getting at. So this point, so yeah, it sounds kind of strange, but yeah, his name, he is a jealous God, and he does demand worship. Um, so yeah, like from a human standpoint, you say like, yeah, that sounds kind of selfish, kind of conceited, but that's because we're limited humans. To us, when we, people do get proud and arrogant and overstate their accomplishments. God doesn't. When God says, he's all powerful and almighty and all knowing and omnipresent and omniscient and everything, that's literally what it is. Like he literally is all those things. Like it's not like he's not overstating his qualifications. No, those are God's qualifications. And that is why he is worthy of that praise. So he isn't being arrogant or conceited. So yeah, like when you know something and you do have that skill, it's not wrong for you to say like, yeah, I know how to do that. That's not arrogant or conceited. It's like, no, you really do know how to do that. So yeah, the God, the creator of the universe, is not overstating his accomplishments and his abilities. He really can. He really is as amazing as he says he is. Um, so yeah, by saving you, that magnifies his name. So you have to think about that. So he saved you for his name's sake. When you trust in Jesus on the cross, when you trust in Jesus' sacrifice, you're going to heaven, and your works have nothing to do with it. It's God. So if you trust in Jesus Christ as your Savior, then your sins are washed away. If you cannot go to heaven after that, then that is not a problem with you. That means that God's power is limited. So you are actually limiting God's power, because it's God's sacrifice on the cross that washes away your sins and allows you to go to heaven. So that's his power at work. So if that's not enough to get you to heaven, then that means God's power is limited. It's an insult to God's power. Um, if you think you can keep losing your salvation, no, you gained your salvation, and you cannot make yourself lose it later. If you can, then you're more powerful than God. That's basically what it's saying. That's what the Bible's saying. So you're limiting God's power. It's God's power that's going to get you to heaven. It's not you. It's God's power. I think maybe like it's maybe kind of hard to think about it, but I think people are so focused on themselves and what they're doing and their accomplishments and what they're doing to get themselves into heaven, that they forget that what's getting to heaven is God. God allowed you to go to heaven by trusting in Jesus Christ. So it is God's power that'll get you there. It's not your power. It's God's power. So if you're saying, if you can get yourself out of that, then you're saying that you can override God, basically. So override God's power. So now you don't want to get too caught up with that, because then you get into then you get into like Calvinism, like, oh, God forced you to be saved. No, God didn't force you. You have free will. If you use your free will correctly to be saved, then yes, God saved you, that's it, and you're going to heaven, and you cannot force yourself out of that. So there's, like I already talked about eternal security in a few other videos, but just remember that is God's power. It is supreme, and you cannot override God's power. So yeah, anyway, yeah, kind of long, I said a lot of things, but yeah, basically with God's power is supreme, and a lot of times you think about it, like God's going to do stuff that's in his self, like what's going to magnify his name. So you have to think about, like, does this profit God? And if it's something that'll glorify God, then God will do it. So yeah, that's sometimes you have to pray like that. You have to pray like that. You have to talk to God like, hey, this is going to praise your name. I want to do what's going to praise your name, and then God will bless you. If you're doing it for God's glory, God's going to bless it. If you're doing it for some other selfish motive, then probably not. So yeah, anyway, that ends the first video. I'm going to continue this series. Next time, I'm going to talk about how God's power is shown. See you next time.